Heroes of old Japan, I'm coming back to you. There in old Japan, you'll make my dreams.
And welcome back to the Nihon no Madoguchi Podcast with your host Domo and
Marty, what's up? What's up? Long time no see this time, right, Domo-san? It's been about 5 minutes.
Azure. Yeah. It's 5 minutes is a long time, for someone, for some animals. I think like the cicada only lives like a week.
Oh
5
yeah,
minutes is
right.
like a
Yes.
year, probably.
I mean, technically they live for
Yeah,
7
yeah.
years, but like they spend 6.5 years in the underground, and then when they come up, they only live for one summer, and then they gone. It's very
Yeah,
Japanese
it's
kind of
yeah.
like way of living. Like it's very
The
mono
ephemeral, yeah. Very, very temporary, yeah. You have the sakura, you got the cicadas, you got
Right.
the plum blossom that keep making an appearance in our recent episodes.
It's gonna be a recurrent
But
Easter egg of our channel. It's gonna be plum blossom whenever you don't expect them. Pa! Plum blossom in your face.
plum blossom
And
out of nowhere.
speaking of plum blossom, it should be, if I remember correctly, in about 2 months there should be the Umeshu Matsuri in Daizaifu Tenmangu. Umeshu is like the plum liquor, plum wine, they call it often, although it's not
Yeah.
a wine because it's not done through fermentation, and not the way wine is done, at least. Anyway, be careful because whenever
No.
you don't expect it, plum blossom will appear again in this channel.
It's true. At some point, maybe in the form of a wine next time.
We're gonna be drinking.
I do enjoy. I do enjoy umeshu, and actually, not unrelated to umeshu, I guess, is so. I mentioned in the previous episode,
Right.
the part one of our little series here, that uh, I had got Nihongo Jozu while I was at work, yesterday,
Right.
and the work that I was doing is it was at a festival called Sakagura Matsuri.
Mm.
So we have a few different breweries here in Udashino, in our town, and they have a festival every year where they release some limited time, you know, sake, right, the rice wine.
Nice.
It's only for those 2 days. If you don't get
Mm.
them on those 2 days, you can't get them anywhere. Um, and I had to work, so I couldn't really go and buy any sake or anything like that. But my girlfriend, she had came to the festival. She saw me, whatever, and then she had went out and bought some for me. I didn't ask her. She said, I thought you would like this, and I enjoy umeshu. I love
Right.
some umeshu. Umeshu is very good. Um, but what she got me was yuzu shu,
Oh, 見たことない.
and
Never see that
I was
before.
I was like, yuzu shu? That sounds nice. And it says it's vintage from 2007. Um, I don't drink often.
Mm.
And I usually only drink with my friends. We get together.
Right.
We'll do a asamare karaoke or something, or
Mm-hmm.
or we're just like chilling or something, hanging out. But I typically never drink by myself
Right.
because usually if I just drink, I get tired and I go to sleep. That's the end of the night. But recently, my girlfriend she's been giving me alcohol as gifts in the form of umeshu and now yuzushu.
Right.
And so now I've just been kind of like every now and again, maybe like before going to bed, I'll pour
Yeah,
a
sip.
glass or something of some umeshu. Now that I just got the yuzushu yesterday, So I might do that after we finish this podcast, this episode here. Pour me a glass of Yuzu and see how it tastes, how it
Do you know
compares
that
to Japanese.
what
Great.
you're doing is as a name in Japanese, the act of drinking to go to sleep?
Re-
Mm.
Oh, is there? Oh, let me hear it.
So if I remember correctly, it's called nezake, which is precisely the fact that you drink something uh, to go to bed. It's like usually it's in the form of a strong osake.
Nezake.
寝酒って言うんですよ。
Oh, I think yeah, we I think we have something called in English. It's called a nightcap.
A
Uh,
nightcap.
and
Oh,
it's like it's if you think like a nightcap literally is a cap you put on before you go to bed. People, I don't know if a lot of people do wear nightcaps nowadays,
right.
but you probably seen them in like dramas or like someone like makes a meme or
Oh yeah, yeah,
dramatization
yeah.
of something like I'm going to bed. They put on like a little nightcap and then they go to bed. And it's kind of like you drink your osake before you go to bed, and then you go to bed.
Mm.
Let me actually. Yep, the nezake, the nightcap. I don't know if y'all can
Right.
see that.
Nightcap.
That's Benkyou ni narimashita nezake.
Yeah.
I've been I've been explaining to people this entire time. Like they ask, "Oh, do you drink?" And they're like, "Oh, sake, do you know Yeah, I
Mm.
drink. I drink, but not often. I'm not that strong. I only drink with the boys, and I may drink. I don't usually drink alone, but recently I've been taking a cup, a sip before bed or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have just shortened that and say I don't drink a lot. I'm with the friends, and recently I've been doing some nezake.
Right.
Ooh. Instead of explaining, I just drank a couple, sake before going to bed, and just hit with a nezake. And I think this is a perfect,
Transition,
segue
right?
into our
Yes.
topic for today. We are not Jozu.
Never,
we
never
are
have been
not.
Josu.
We are not Nihongo Jozu. Just
全
forget
然上手じゃ
everything
な
you
いで
just
すね。
heard about in the last episode about us being Nihongo Jozu,
Mm.
and just scrap that. We
So part
are
one
not
was
Jozu.
Nihongo
We
Jozu
can
desu
see.
ne, and then this second part will be そうでもない、それともまたまたですね, which means we are still trash at
Mala
Japanese.
it's true. It's true. It's Japanese is hard,
So
and no matter how long, how much you study, you'll never be native. You'll never
never,
be
never.
Japanese. You'll never
Mm,
speak like them. You get
yeah.
very close. You get very close. You can basically be native. It's difficult. You can have native like speech.
Yes.
Uh, but you just not being born here and absorbing the language like a native does is
Mm-hmm.
automatically qualifies you as a non-native.
Right.
So uh, and we'll probably get more into this topic later. But like even amongst the Jozu folks, the people who are Jozu, once you reach a certain level of proficiency, uh, consider yourself Jozu. Even amongst the Jozu folks, there's levels to Jozu-ness. We can talk about that as we get into the topic here.
Definitely, yes.
You know,
It feels
the
like
topic being
being I mean, yes, not being Jozu, or if you want to look at a different perspective, the different steps, the different
mm,
walls that we faced during our Japanese learning experience. And those times, both those times when we felt like we were hitting a wall, like that there was
mm,
quite a limitation to our proficiency, and
mm,
other times when we felt like that barrier was overcome, and that we went to the next step of our proficiency in Japanese. And oddly enough, I feel like, especially for Japanese, there are quite a few of these barriers, quite a few of these steps as long as I can tell from the other languages that I can speak. Japanese is the less organic in the way of having so many structured steps into your access to the higher levels. Which makes sense because I'm not a linguist, but I feel like the Japanese is a little bit more structured, like pyramidically. It's a triangle basically. It's a pyramid
Wow.
more than other languages.
Yeah.
As you can see, I am not
No,
Josu at the
I
English neither. I'm doing an English-based podcast, but I'm not a native, so and I have a thick Italian accent apparently. So bear with me also with. We will be doing a special French or a special Italian once, but I will be talking alone because Domo cannot speak. We will do a
this
special
is true.
Japanese as well, but
I
yes.
would I was being hi
うん、
hi
ですね。
うなずき
相づちですね。相づち。
相づちyeah
So,
and see I literally just now
mhm.
I mixed two Japanese words that
Oh
I
yeah.
know aizuchi and unazuku.
Mm.
Unazuku is to nod. Aizuchi
It's
is
not.
the yeah. I mean, it is also the nod, but it's like the in compliance, like the noises as well as the nodding, those kind of like things. And I literally said unazuchi or something.
Unazuchi.
And yeah, and Marty, uh, suddenly correcting me. He's like, the Izu's the Izu. I'm like, the Izu. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And it's insane. It's insane. Like I know the words, but I've literally in my head just mixed them.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that sounds right.
Mm.
That sounds right. That was not right.
Not right.
And this is what it looks like to be Jozu, but not Jozu. I'm the face of Jozu, but not Jozu.
Good
I
enough.
make words
Good
up
enough.
all the time. It's good enough. It's good enough. It's good enough to call myself fluent. Good enough to work in a city hall here in Japan. But and I'll tell you guys about it. I'll tell you guys there's so many times I just mix words up in Japanese. And
Don't tell me about it.
it's not unlike what I do in English. Like I sometimes mix words up in English too, and that's my native language. So it's maybe I just suck. I mean,
You're
I
not
just
good at
suck.
languages.
Period. At language.
Yes, I really feel
But
like, especially with Japanese, and this kind of ties up with what we were talking about the Nihon語上手ですね. Especially in Japanese, I feel like sometimes if you're not reconforted, reassured in your proficiency level, it can be quite hard to study Japanese because you
yeah.
never. It's very difficult to assess if you're doing some improvement, if you're having some improvement in your study, if your level is actually going up, or if you're being trash on a. We are very negative. That's part of studying Japanese is that the true people that learn Japanese never think that they are good at Japanese. And you always feel like there is something lacking, and being reassured that you're doing good, that you're on the good way, it's really helpful when you study Japanese. At least that's my personal opinion. I don't know if the same is true with you, Tomo.
No, I think that's exactly right. I've noticed a couple of things about learning Japanese and Japanese learners in these last 12 years of learning Japanese.
12
And
years, wow.
one thing about the learners, let's go from that, like you said, literally as you said, we always think that we're not Josie. Like there's always more to learn. We always very humble about our proficiency, and I got a taste of this when we were on JTW, and we had a survivor of the bombing of Hiroshima come
Right,
to
yes.
give a talk about his experience and stuff, and and things like that. And he had a translator, a foreign translator up there. He was he was actually doing the job I'm doing now. He was a jet. He was a CIR on the jet program. And when I was watching him just, kind of just go off, he was massively like translating this man's Japanese into English, telling his story, getting his story out there. I was like, man, I need to get like him. Like I need to get to where he is. Because I always wanted to do translation and interpretation as well. And then after the whole, the kind of event was over, the speech was over, the story was over. I went up to the guy, to the translator, the interpreter, and I was like, man, I was like, hey, I'm glad, I got, you here to interpret for us. I appreciate it. I'm also thinking about joining the JET program, possibly as a CIR. I'm okay at Japanese. I'm not, nothing crazy. I'm here to get better. And I see that you literally interpreted this man's entire like hour, like little, story. Like that takes some knowledge and takes skill. I was like, what do I like? I was like, man, I gave him the equivalent of a Jozu, I guess a Nihongo Jozu, but from a foreigner. I was like, man,
Right, as a
your Japanese
foreigner.
is so good. What do I have to do to get to where you're at? He was like, nah, I'm trash. I'm like, my Japanese is so bad. I was like, what? I was like, bro. I was like, if you're trash, what does that make me? That makes me the non-burnable trash. Like that makes me the
The
boy
worst one,
non-burnable.
the toxic waste.
You can't even you can't even burn me. Like what is this? Like and as I also have improved in my Japanese and have gotten better and continued on my Japanese journey, I've realized yes, you're always like I'm not I'm not that great, and I mentioned this before, like the more we learn about Japanese, the more we realize that we don't know a
Yeah.
lot. Like there's so much more we don't know. And so it keeps you humble. And I also think, but I think that's it's a product of the language just being difficult, yes. But I
Right.
think it's also a product of Japanese culture,
Mhm.
because the culture and the language are very intertwined, right? And
Right.
the humbleness
Mhm.
and politeness and things is baked into the language, just with the honorifics and things like that, bowing and whatnot. And they do say when you learn a second language, like when you speak another language, your personality changes a little bit,
Yes. Yes.
depending on what language you speak. And I think there's some truth to that.
Mm.
We probably tend to become more polite, more aware of our surroundings and what people think and our word choices. Not now, obviously
Mm.
not that like 100% like we're becoming Japanese, but just I do notice, at least for me, I do tend to apologize more often, and when I'm
In
speaking Japanese,
Japanese, yeah.
I hit I hit people with the sumimasen all the time. Sumimasen, sumimasen. I didn't even mean it.
So
I didn't mean
useful.
to really care. I just said that's just what you say. I'll sumimasen. Why'd I say sumimasen? I'm becoming fuck. I'm freak. So bleep it out, bleep. But I'm like, I'm just saying sumimasen just to say sumimasen.
Mm.
I would never say. I would have never said sorry here
Right.
in English.
In the same,
Is what I'm saying.
because it has not the same connotation at the same time. It's not like when you say
True.
sorry, you're like, usually when you say sorry, it's because you really mean it, that you are sorry. While sumimasen may
Right.
have a different connotation. Of course, it also means I'm sorry, but it may have also different connotation as like excuse me, or
Mhm.
many different graduations. So I agree that we tend to apologize more when we speak Japanese.
And I think it's just a product of learning the language. Like
I
you
guess
you
so,
learn about
yes.
the culture. The culture isn't baked in the language, so you
Mm.
tend to start to reflect some of those cultural norms and
So
things when you speak.
I don't know about you, but I don't know. It's very unconscious. I don't do it on purpose. But
Sure, sure.
when I speak on the phone in Japanese, I tend to
Yeah.
bow, and I keep the phone
You
like this,
see,
and I bow. Also, I don't do that in other
dog.
languages because it's like,
Yeah,
and I do the same thing.
he does the
Many Japanese these too as
same.
well. And I mean,
They do. They do the
having a
same.
phone conversation in foreign languages is quite difficult. So I feel like if I don't 100% focus on now, I have to speak Japanese like properly, and this also means that I have to follow it up with
Yeah, yeah.
like the body language. So yeah.
Everything is becomes Japanese. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the way the Japanese talk at the phone, I do exactly the same, like the hand like this, and then bowing when ありがとうございます。
He
こちらこそありがとうございます。
He set the hand like this.
Like
I don't know
this.
if I've ever done this. I don't
Yeah,
know if I've
like
done this,
this.
but
Like,
I'm
すいません。
pretty sure.
ありがとうございます。はい、とんでもないです。はい、ありがとうございます。はい、失礼します。And that's exactly how I do it on the phone.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever done like with the hand as well, but I'm pretty sure I've bowed a couple times. Not just like
Uh,
unconsciously,
uh,
just like we'll end like it's usually like either at the beginning or the end
もしもし。
of the call, right? Where you hit it with the moshi moshi, especially at work. はい、嬉野市役所観光商工課のドミクです。And then they'll be like, oh, they'll say their department, and they'll be like, お疲れ様です、お疲れ様です, right? お疲れ様です. I'm like, they got me. Because I think it's because those words that we're saying are usually paired with a bow, and
Yes,
if you're
exactly.
actually
Yes.
interacting
Yeah.
with someone, so it's very difficult. And like if you've done it enough times, it's just ingrained in
Yeah.
your just
It's
in you.
instinct. No,
Yeah,
it's not something that you
yeah,
think
it's
about it
weird.
anymore. It's become an instinct to just bow when you say certain uh, sentences.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's quite the interesting phenomenon because I remember I think it was Pollock Sensei
Oh
from
yes,
the JTW.
DGTW stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the one who pointed that out to me. I had never noticed it until he said, "I've ever seen Japanese people bowing while on the phone." I was like, "They don't do that. You're lying." And
And now we
this, I
do it
literally
too.
went to I think I was in Gakken Toshi. Uh, I was like, "What? There's no one there. Why you bow?" And then you actually do it, and you're like, I see. I see how it happens.
Mm.
You know.
That
Oh, right.
this makes me
So
think
yeah.
also at the beginning of the study when I think when I was in GTW, so it was still when I was in GTW, I was still intermediate level, if you may say. I didn't have enough
Hey,
cultural proficiency, more than language proficiency, I would say. And we were traveling with a couple of Japanese students for
mhm,
leisure, and I remember them talking about their professor, and they were using keigo, so the honorific form, right? And I was like, it was a genuine question. I was like, I know that when you address to your superiors or your professors,
mhm.
you use keigo when you are addressing them directly. But the
Yeah,
professor was not there, but they were still using the honorific, and I was like, but the professor is not here. Why are you still using the honorific to refer to him? I mean, it was quite a basic question because you respect the professor, but it was quite interesting the way we don't have the same thing in English, French, or Italian where we use a different, we don't have this kind of honorific aspect for not interactive dialogues, but they do
yeah,
it in Japanese, and it was very interesting to see that they, on purpose or maybe they did it instinctively, they were using a more complex language when referring to the professor. It was
yeah,
very interesting.
yeah. There's so many things like just on your journey, the Japanese journey, especially on the one on my journey. You're just like, why? What is this? Why is this happening? And especially in the case that Marty just mentioned here about using keigo. for someone who is of a higher status, even when they're not there, when you talk about someone of a higher status, you have to use certain type of keigo.
Yes.
And to this day, I've probably learned keigo on like 5 or 6 different times, like all the verbs and all the conjugate. Yeah, I couldn't tell you the difference. I mean, I could probably tell you the difference between Son Keigo and Kenjogo, but like that's about it. Like if you ask me what's the difference, like because you have Meshiagaru for taberu, right? Meshiagaru.
Yes.
And then you have
いただきますね。
What's the itadakimasu, right? Yeah. Which one is which? I couldn't tell you. I'm pretty sure Meshiagaru is like for the.
And then itadakimasu is you lower yourself.
There you go. There, the Marty speaking the facts. So I know the Kenjogo, Son Keigo,
right?
and the Kenjogo. Son Keigo would be the itadakimasu. The Kenjogo, no, the opposite. The Kenjogo, yeah, is you're lowering yourself. Son Keigo is higher up, I think.
Something.
But yeah. So like I couldn't tell you. I know like there are phrases. Certain phrases memorized. Certain keigo phrases memorized. But I probably couldn't create my own, not like from zero sentence using random keigo verbs that I know.
Actually,
because it's
for keigo,
because it depends on who you're talking to or who you're talking about, where you are, and like thinking about all of that. And like I can hit you with a Sakamoto-san irashaimasu ka, right? Irasharu is the son keigo, the son keigo for iru.
Yes.
So they exist. Irasharu. And then you also have osharu, which is the
osharu
to say. Osharutori. That's a common phrase. Osharutori is something you probably hear quite often, right? Osharutori this. I'm trying to think of one that I don't hear often. That doesn't really matter.
Oh, you have Goran Ninaru also, but I use
Goran Ninaru is very. I hear Goran Ninaru.
I use keigo quite a lot when I work because when you're talking with different companies or when you're talking with your superiors, you have to use keigo. And actually, one easy way to speak in keigo is that you use the how do you call it? What is the grammar terminology? Sasete itadaku. So when you do something, you do sasete itadaku. And then when it is something that you want it to be done, you do shite itadaku. Usually you don't say shite itadaku, but shite itadaitara saiwai desu or shite itadakereba to omoimasu. So you use this format, but basically using the sasete itadaku, it's you can only speak like this, and it's like shite morau. It's the same thinking, but sasete morau means that if you want to translate it literally, it basically means allow me to do that. That's when you talk about actions that you do in reference to someone which is above yourself, sasete itadaku, and then you can say whatever you want. That's the small trick.
That is actually something that I use as well. It's one of those phrases that it just comes in handy, right?
Yeah, you post it everywhere.
I can't remember when was the last time I used it, but I use it obviously at work as well, but I'll use it as a joke in informal situations as well.
Right.
So you hit them with a they'll be like, oh, I brought some okashi or something. じゃあこれをちょっと
食べさせていただきますね。
Tabasasete itadakimasu, right? Right? So I was very formal. You'd be kind of joking around, but like that's probably one. It's difficult if you know when you probably first learn it. But
Right.
just remember, sasete itadaku means I'm gonna do it.
Right.
I will do.
That's the basic stuff.
Sasete itadaku equals I will do the verb.
Because you can't be
Itadaku means
allow
to
me.
receive,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Receive. So you think someone's doing it for you initially. No, because the sasete means they're gonna
Allow
let
you, yes, do it.
allow you to do to receive. It's crazy. So when you try to break it down, you can probably make some sense of it, but if it can get confusing. But remember it as a set. I think that's a good rule of thumb for a lot of things.
Yes.
Remember things as phrases, especially at the beginning. Like there's whenever I tried to learn Korean at one point in time.
Oh.
And I was doing okay, I was doing well, but there would be things that would pop up when I'm learning, like at the beginning stages, that would pop up. I'm like, I learned a rule, I learned this rule, and then there's something that's already broken that rule, and I'm like, what's happening here? And then I get too caught up in the weeds here, and then instead of just learning it as a like this is what I need to know as a set. And I'm like, no, but I need to know why this is different than what they said over here.
Right.
And when you start getting too in the weeds, you start slowing down your progress. And that ultimately, that and the fact that I probably won't ever really go to Korea, at least not anytime soon that I can see, it really impeded on my progress. I was going ham for a while, but then I was like, I'm tired.
You hit a slump.
I'm tired. I want to know how the language works from all right. Because I've gotten to that point with Japanese, and so I kind of want to do that for other languages. But you can't do that at the beginning because you don't know a lot. You don't know enough. So just taking things as chunks will really help. Will really help you progress faster.
Yes.
And just remembering that this means this, will help you kind of like just build up not I was gonna say repertory, which is what they say in Japanese, repertory of like these like stock words, stock phrases that you have that this equals this equals this. It helps in help with faster recall, instead of you trying to build your sentence up, one word at a time.
Yes.
Toire wa doko desu ka? That is a phrase. You can know that toire means toire and doko means doko, but doko means where. But toire wa doko desu ka is a question that means where's the toilet, and you can have that as a set phrase. And then once you get further on, you start, okay, yeah, doko is where. It's one of the question words. Nani, naze, doko, itsu, that kind of thing. But yeah, the Japanese. So Marty, I wanted to ask.
Yes.
So when did you? Was there a time in your journey where you felt that like you weren't improving, or like what was there a wall, like a hard wall that you just hit, and it was hard to overcome?
Yes.
But you obviously ended up overcoming. How did you overcome that wall?
Right. I think if you want to speak about walls, there is one initial wall was not understanding the natives when they were speaking among themselves, or they were not speaking a tuned down version of Japanese. That was actually a fun and interesting wall to overcome, because I'm more lenient toward the speaking and listening aspect. So when I was with Japanese people, when I was traveling in Japan and they were speaking among themselves, I was not able to follow what they were saying. And how did I overcome this? With much practice and also a lot of listening. Probably I felt like one big improvement was forcing myself to watch and consume Japanese media without subtitles.
Oh, yeah,
Yes. So
yeah.
when
That's good.
you don't have subtitles, you may be not understanding much of what's happening, but the more you listen, the more you pick up. There are some frequent words, frequent expression. That is funny because recently I've been at work. I'm checking the Indonesia version of the Pokemon anime, and I have no interest in
Yeah.
learning Indonesian. But at the same time, now I know 4 or 5 words in Indonesia, just in Indonesian, just through watching the anime. I know how you say
Right,
sorry,
literally.
and I know how to say sorry and thank you, for example, and I never studied Indonesian.
He's
And
like purely from absorption of the media. Yeah.
yes, yes. I mean, if you want to get better at listening and then subsequently speaking, and you don't have the possibility to, because the easiest answer is go live in Japan, but not everyone can afford
Yeah.
or has the occasion to live in Japan. So my question is consume as much media as possible, and not only professional media. So if you listen to anime or movies,
Mm,
they have a specific diction, so a
yeah.
clear,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
either a clear diction or a theatrical diction that may not be as similar as the more day-to-day pronunciation and
Mm,
elocution. So my suggestion would also be consume more different types of media like reality shows
yeah.
or variety, the ways that different spectrums of the language you absorb. The more you absorb, the more you will be able to, even if you don't understand anything at first, because if you rely only on subtitles, you will never make that additional step of. But of
Mm,
course, if you have some basic knowledge, if you start from zero and you don't use subtitles, you will never go anywhere. But that
it's tough.
was,
What?
yes,
Yeah.
one of the walls that I was able to overcome, because there are many walls that I'm still not able to overcome. So, do you have any
Oh yeah. Yeah.
walls that you were able to overcome, Domo?
Yeah, yeah. I think hearing about the walls that you had and were able to overcome, as well as those that you aren't able to overcome, are is very beneficial to the listener.
Yeah.
Um, I've had and still do have plenty of walls, and actually, as I was listening to you speak, it reminded me of it reminded me that we are quite different in how
Yes.
in our Japanese kind of like language approach and in our strengths and weaknesses. Because I think everyone hits this wall, right? The speaking wall, the
Yes.
listening wall. Uh, I was bad at both. I wasn't particularly great at either listening or speaking, and I wanted to get better. Like that wall, boom, wall. How do you get better at that? Speaking, listening. Literally, as you just explained, uh, and listening is something you can do on your own. Like you said, watching media, watching YouTube, watching animes, more stuff like that. But speaking, you got to get out there. You got to talk to people. You got to, whether it's face to face or not,
Yeah.
you got to actually go and socialize. And uh, I'm I, I'm even though I seem quite outgoing and proactive and out there, I'm quite introverted, right? If I had the option of staying inside and watching anime or going out and to a club and having fun, I mean they're both fun. Don't get me wrong. I'd probably take the anime unless the club involved an Italian man and his name is Marty. But
Topic for
I
another
digress, right?
topic for
So
another episode, right?
right. Uh, but so for me, who came to Japan to improve my Japanese, uh, and is quite introverted, don't really like I don't say I don't like talking to people, but it's more I don't like talking to people when I can't communicate effectively, right?
Right.
There's no, like, my Japanese wasn't great by any means. And so I'm trying to talk to people and I can't fully express myself and I'm making mistakes. That's very embarrassing. Very embarrassing. It's very it's cringe. It's very cringy, cringeworthy. You're like trying to, you kind of feel like a weeb. You're out here
Right.
pretending to speak Japanese. You don't really know Japanese. At least that's how it felt for me. And but and because of all that embarrassment and feeling like it was cringe, uh, it makes you not want to talk. It makes you want to avoid conversations, avoid certain situations, certain conversations about words you don't know. Because after a while, you will have like certain words that you've heard and have said yourself, just like ready to go about certain
Right.
conversations,
Mm-hmm.
like about the tenki, about anime. You have like certain knowledge about anime and genres and stuff like that, right? But if someone says, "Hey, uh, did you hear about that NASA uh, probe that was launched to Mars yesterday?" You don't know any of those words. You
Right.
might know NASA, but probe Mars launched. What is that? You don't know what's gonna come out. That's an extreme example, but you don't know what's gonna come up in a conversation and whether you have any knowledge about that topic in the target language or not. So that it makes you try to avoid or the conversation, or at least steer conversations in a way that you can engage in the conversation. Um, but what I've come to realize in what I recommend for you guys to do to kind of overcome this uh, this fear of speaking, or lack of wanting to speak to Japanese people or being embarrassed when speaking to Japanese people is uh, suck it up. Yeah,
Don't think about it.
it's it's not even don't think about it. You're
Mm.
gonna be in situations in Japanese, especially at the beginning, where you don't know what's going on. You
Right.
you
Yes.
you hearing them talk.
Mm-hmm.
You can't understand it,
You cannot
and you
follow.
don't. All you can do is say hi or mm,
Mm.
or you might think what you heard them say,
Mm-hmm.
and you say something, and then you need to reply, and they hit you with a and then they're like, oh shit, you done fucked up. You did not you missed something. You've missed something that's gonna happen
Yeah.
time and time again. It happens to me still
Mm.
today,
Me too.
and
Me
you're
too.
gonna have to just get used to it. You have to be okay with that feeling
Yeah.
of ambiguity
Mm-hmm.
in conversations in Japanese. You're not gonna understand everything. You're
No.
not gonna understand everything 100%, and that's okay.
A
That's
good tip.
okay.
A
You'll
good tip
get
for
there.
the beginners is try to mimic the emotions of the person you're talking to. That helps
Yeah.
making the conversation progress. So if the person is laughing, try to catch the mood of the conversation. That really helped me a lot at the beginning when I had no idea what was happening, but at the same time I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation because I was clearly not following what
Mhm.
was going to happen. I mean, unless it's a life or death situation, in this case you need to know what is happening. But if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just
yeah.
have to follow the conversation of natives and your life is not involved in this conversation, then try to match the overall emotion and the expression of those people, and try to mimic the way they react to each other's. That
Yeah, yeah,
also
yeah.
gives you the cultural clues on how the discussion is conducted. That was also something I usually tend to mimic a lot what people
Mm.
do when they speak, which is also a bad thing because when someone stutters, I tend to stutter because it's like very instinctive to try to mimic certain patterns or certain way of moving. But yes, one thing is really close observation of how people behave and how people react. That would be
No, yeah.
a good um, tips for the beginners.
That is a great tip, and there's a Japanese word for that.
Oh, really?
Uh,
さすが。
yeah, right. So you taught me nezake
Yes.
in the previous episode, or maybe earlier this episode. It's all starting to blend together. But so I'll teach you one. And it literally means to learn by mimicking others. I think that's what it literally means. Let me confirm that. Yeah, learn by imitation, learn by watching others. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's a phrase, and it's miyo mimane. Yeah, miyo mimane. So miyo is like obviously to watch, but and mimane is to watch and mimic. Right. The mane suru and mimane. And you know where I learned that?
Tell me about it.
Learned it in the anime.
And then the circles come to a closure.
It further proves Marty's suggestion of watching Japanese media, watching some One Punch Man or something, or some Dan. And you can learn vocabulary and stuff through there. The phrase "mio mimane," I learned it from the sequel of Initial D, MF Ghost, and the main character. He's from England. He's coming to Japan to find his father, and his whole story. But he's working in a cafe, and he was like writing some kanji or something down, and the owner of the cafe is, oh my God, I didn't know you could. I know you're Japanese because you're like half Japanese because it's one of his parents was Japanese. But I didn't know you could also write kanji. He was I just learned by watching what everyone else was doing. And the phrase they use was "miyo mimane," and I was like, "miyo mimane." I was like, I've never heard that, but "miyo mimane" is a great suggestion. That's I would say a lot of people also not to toot my own horn. They a lot of Japanese be like, "Oh my God, they hit you with you're so good at Japanese. Your pronunciation is, if I close my eyes, I couldn't tell that you weren't Japanese. Like your pronunciation is like a Japanese person's pronunciation." And they're like, how did you get this good? And I'm like, I just mimic people. I literally just say what I've heard Japanese people say and how they say it.
Learn it and then repeat.
That's what I've done. You've learned it, you've heard it enough, and now you're just saying it. You're just saying what they say and how they say it, and which makes them be like, "Damn, he's Japanese. He could be Japanese." I'm just saying what you guys say. I'm not doing anything crazy. But I get it. There's a lot of foreigners who have accents. So I can get how they're like, oh, that's crazy. How did he get the Japanese pronunciation?
How did he name it?
But right, miyo mimane, learning by imitation, and it's weird like that mimane part. It's like it's not a typical verb conjugation. Like at least especially with miru, right? It's not this is mimane, but yeah, I think you guys remember that miyo mimane, and right, another thing that I had an issue with, just to finish it to top it off,
to bring it to a closure.
Bring it to a closure was language fatigue.
Yes.
When you first come to Japan, or I think it's probably any country, you start speaking a language if you don't speak regularly, your brain gets tired.
Yes,
you get physically exhausted just speaking. And the remedy, keep speaking. Like it's all just keep going.
Yeah.
Don't stop. There's a quote. When you realize you're in hell, don't stop. Keep going. You gotta get out. Don't just stay in hell. You just keep going. And it's similar. It's similar. It's the language fatigue. But then I don't know if you've experienced this, Marty, as a man who speaks 4 languages.
Right. All the time, I think.
When you start using words or producing sounds that you don't normally produce,
your mouth
your mouth feels weird. It starts getting. It feels very like. It feels like
You get
I don't know
tired.
if it hurts is the right word, but
The muscle, you're getting muscle fatigue in your mouth. Actually, to be fair,
yeah,
I experienced this the most in English because the way you use your mouth to speak in English is very different from the way you use it in Italian or in Japanese, because Italian and Japanese are very similar, the way you speak.
yeah.
So every time I speak for a long period of time in English, then I get like here the jaw gets very, very tired, and I feel like mushy, and I feel like my mouth is not moving as fluently as good. I
Yeah,
don't I lose this how do you say smoothness in the mouth
yeah.
when I speak the foreign
It's
languages, especially English.
insane. Yeah, like even even recently, like when me and Marty and I, we studied abroad 2017, 2018.
Yes.
And then we went our separate ways and came back to Japan
Mm-hmm.
and kind of kind of reunited, more
2021.
or less, for lack of a better term. And when I came back to Japan and started working again, I had that same issue.
Mm.
My mouth wasn't used to speaking Japanese like it was before. Like it felt like it got worse. I was like, it hurts. It
It's
hurt to
like
speak
not working.
Japanese, and yeah, it hurt, and nothing was coming out. And this also goes into saying, even once you get to a certain level of Japanese or anything, uh, like it's not even the language learning thing. Once you get to a certain level of Japanese, so there's a couple things that are gonna happen, right? One is there's gonna be like a decrease of diminishing returns. That's the term I was looking for earlier. Diminishing return. The further you go on the journey, you're gonna start seeing less and less progress, right?
Yes.
As far as you study.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this great book called Mastery by George Leonard. Don't quote me on. I think that's the author.
I will put it
And
in
he
the
talks about
description.
yeah, only actually. He talks about the mastery curve, and it's you see, like, especially at the beginning, you see like a huge boost of you just learning everything that you can learn, boom, 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 and then it flattens out, and then you hit something called the plateau, and that plateau is going to be the bane of your existence when you get to the intermediate level. When you're at the beginning, it's still kind of fun. You're like, okay, I need to find some new things to learn, and it's probably a lot shorter, the plateau, but the
Mm-hmm.
higher and more advanced you get, the longer that plateau becomes, and the
Yes.
more you feel like you're not really improving, despite the amount of study you're putting in. And he says in this book, and it's been quite you know um, useful in my language learning journey, and just in anything in general, because it's not a book about mastering languages. It's about a
Right.
book about mastering anything. And
Mm-hmm.
he says you have to learn to love the plateau,
Right.
because in your journey you're gonna be spending most of your time on the plateau. uh, and if you really want to break that down, what he's really saying is learning to enjoy the process of learning the language. You have to really enjoy learning Japanese, and not enjoying the progress that you're making.
Right.
You gotta like enjoy. Japanese is a fun language. I love learning Japanese. I love learning about
Mm-hmm.
the new verbs and how the adjectives work and how adjectives can be verbs, and you can just make a sentence. You can make a whole sentence just by saying samui, and that makes sense in Japanese, but you can't just say cold in English. You know how like the differences between your native language and Japanese. You have to enjoy that process, and if you can learn to enjoy that process, enjoy those plateaus where you're not making significant progress or any progress at all, then you'll be able to reach that level of mastery
Yes.
without any any issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Also,
and
you
yeah,
can you can consider when you hit that famous plateau, you can also consider that this is at the time when you're consolidating your knowledge and your proficiency. So
Yeah.
it's primordial that you keep doing it. Otherwise, you're going back to the beginning. So you're
Yeah.
losing actually your
True.
proficiency. So even if you don't see
Maybe.
improvements, you just have to keep going forward, and you will see that you won't realize it at the time being, but you will start improving again. That's also what happened to
Yeah.
me a couple of times, that I felt like there was no improvement at all, and then some occasion made me think that actually I can speak this fluently. I was not. Actually, I'm good at it.
Oh,
But as
maybe
the topic of this episode was 日本語上手ですね、そうでもないですね。So we always have to to keep humble and remember that we are trash at Japanese. That is the golden rule. Never think that you're good at it. Always struggle for the best.
Exactly. Japanese will humble you, and
So many times.
just remember, no matter how good you get, you're not that good, and you'll have days where you're like, oh, everything's just coming out so smooth, so peta. You don't even have to think. It's just all Nihongo, and it's everything's coming out perfect. All your particles are nice. You use the right verbs. You're using like a phrase that you've never used before, but you've heard some Japanese people use. You just brought it out of nowhere, and there's gonna be days where you can't say anything right. Yeah. Everything's gonna be wrong. You're gonna hit them with it. Like there was a story I wanted to tell. We don't have time, but there was a time when I wanted to buy a potato, and that's jagaimo, and I didn't say jaga. I said jakumono. That was not good. That was like, what's a jakumono? I had to explain. Yeah, it was very. Yeah, and then it's like, I've been studying Japanese for 10 years, and I can't say jagaimo. That's great. Japanese will humble you when you least expect it. Yeah. It's insane. So always remember, Nihongo wa jouzu kamoshirenai kedo, でもそうでもない。
そうでもないね。
でもそうでもない。本当はそうでもない。
Excellent. I think that was it was a perfect closure. So nothing. I mean, plenty more stuff to say, but we will reserve it for future entries. So we have nothing left to say to you. But good morning, good day, and goodbye. Bye bye.
Bye.